recent distillation of the proposed law, we picked 3 pillars which make it almost maybe 100% probability of success. One is the strong legal and institutional framework. It's very clear, and it even acknowledges the existence of other institutions and other frameworks and how the overlaps can be managed. Is I think what I will also address in the next slide. Then the issue of the fund, which fund I'm sure is one of the few that also acknowledges that there will be incentives even for private sector for being climate positive in terms of action. And again, the data-driven aspect, which mandates the collection of data for reporting, not only for international but even for domestic, so that our actions are quite informed. So this is a bit more made about the climate fund. I think it has been touched. We can move to the next slide. Now, the bill has also even gone a step further to identify the possible risks and how this can be mitigated. We have just picked a few. One, the issues of transitional risk. How do we transit from the current practices even to more carbon, reduced carbon frameworks for low development pathways and also climate resistant one. So there's the issue of phased implementation. We certainly cannot move at the same pace and obviously with the same amount of work. So it acknowledges that as well. Then the issue of management of the National Climate Change Fund. It has embedded transparency, which normally is an issue when it comes to public funds. And it has provided some independence on how the fund is going to be audited, which audits are again supposed to be presented to Parliament. So it's not only them being produced and submitted, but they are also subject for scrutiny, which again increases confidence. Then it also allows for capacity building, which is what is required for both implementation and MRV. Like I said, it has also addressed a number of overlaps or potential overlaps, which includes, for example, with EMA, it acknowledges even that in cases where the officers they can complement each other. So as business, we are saying it would not benefit us to have one officer coming in the morning, they're asking about pollution, in the afternoon, we have another one talking of climate change. So it acknowledges those overlaps and how they can be managed, including even in the Forest Act, and even as far as even the other acts like the Tobacco Industry Marketing Board, to do with tobacco levies, and how this can be managed. So it has acknowledged the existence of other legislation, but also then provided a coordinated approach to speak to climate action, which is not an environmental issue, but a social development issue. Next slide, sorry. So the two options that we think have been presented to us are one, the cost of doing nothing, which then presents us, if we don't have this bill, that means our climate action will continue to be uncertain and with obviously quite some risk, because where there is high uncertainty, we also know that risk increases, because risk comprises the potential outcome and also the uncertainty. But the bill then brings a lot of certainty in terms of action, in terms of what investments can be done. And then option 2 now is enacting of the bill, which then provides a coordinated national response, dedicated funding, even other aspects, which then brings us as a nation to be able to manage climate change using a framework that is quite transparent and also in line with international frameworks. So in my last slide, I'm just now giving the key messages. What are we saying? Number one, we are saying the bill is quite strategic and provides a blueprint for sustainable development, inclusive and sustainable industrial development. Secondly, it also equips us with tools for inclusivity. We are here today speaking to you, contributing to building our nation in terms of legal instruments, which means even at implementation with all the provisions, we'll still get a say as business, which then moves the country forward. Then the third one is actually it also transforms fragmented policy. Like we said, climate change is not purely an environmental issue, but it's a developmental issue. It covers and cuts across a number of sectors, in fact, all sectors of the economy. Then the bill brings that together for coordination, even and efficiency. And then finally, it also unlocks international climate finance. We have already seen this even in carbon trading. So what are we saying, or what are we presenting to the members? Support of this bill can surely be very beneficial to the businesses, but also mindful of consideration of the scientific aspects that we talked about, the overlaps that are there, so that we don't increase regulatory burden to businesses, but in the process actually improve efficiency, which is what we have already witnessed is happening with other laws covering other aspects. I submit.
Thank you, Doc, for such a short but enriching presentation. We can give him another round of applause. Honorable members, we have heard all the presentations, and the bottom line is the benefits, they far outweigh the cost of having this bill, and it inspires confidence. There are issues of accountability and transparency, transitional issues, and it also recognizes the existence of other laws like the EMA Act and other laws. So I will open for some issues of times of clarification if there are any. And in the interest of time, I think we will only have 10 minutes. So can we be very short and precise? Can we have a roving mic, please? I'll start here, Honorable Senator Gotora. Maybe you also indicate whom are you directing your question from all our presenters.
Thank you very much to you, maybe moderator. And I would also want to thank the presenters for coming up with something that is, in my view, easy to pass through the two houses. However, I've got 2-3 points that I want to clarify. The first one is the functions of the minister. The way I'm looking at it, you are making the minister now an administrator rather than a policy guide institution, if I may use that word. That's my number one. The second one is the issue of having one person as a trustee of a large fund like that one. I'm not comfortable with that. And the last one is the issue of the overlapping laws. If you look at Harare, say 3-4 years ago, it was probably the dirtiest city in the world. Of course, we were pitching cities like Riyadh and so on. And I think we need to include local authorities on those institutions that you mentioned, like EMA, Forest Commission, and the rest, because there's a lot of garbage that will generate methane gases, which falls and collected in areas. If there was a way, we should have a very clean environment if local authorities were playing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. I'm sure that one is for Mr. Shakata, the Minister of us. Honorable Kangausa.
Thank you. My question, I don't know whether it's the Chief Director. How will on monitoring and evaluation, how will progress on climate change and they can be monitored and evaluated. What indicator will be used to measure success? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you. I just want to find out to what extent Zimbabwe has not benefited from the climate finance in terms of carbon credits trading, and to what extent that with this new bill, Zimbabwe will be able to benefit immensely. The other issue has to do with the structure. I think this is quite a big department which is being proposed. Lots of units, decentralized, like district level. But a very ambitious proposal indeed. So my question is, to what extent is this going to improve Zimbabwe's position in terms of climate change management? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The presentation from Mr. Shakata was a bit very long. Pardon me, Mr. Shakata, if I'm going to ask what you might have already clarified. My question is, does the bill create enforcement rights for citizens, or is it largely declaratory? What remedies are available to citizens if the state fails to meet its climate obligations? The last one. Does this bill mainly acknowledge vulnerability, or does it actively protect the dignity, health, and the productive rights of women and girls in the face of climate change? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question goes to Mr. Shakata. I was a bit disturbed and concerned when you mentioned on the effects of the ozone layer. What it means is we are going to experience the effects of the ozone layer. We are going to experience shortages of water because the underground water is going deeper and deeper. The rain pattern will also affect our dams. So I wanted to know what you are doing from all these other things that you have mentioned. But the issue of water is very critical to the humankind. And what are you going to do to save the lives of the people in terms of water availability? Already, when the sun is very hot, the water will evaporate, and the underground water, we are already witnessing our boreholes. We used to get water at 40 meters, but at the moment, boreholes are going as deeper as 200. Which means the underground water is also affected. My question is, are you also looking at all this together with your stakeholders, which is maybe Ministry of Agriculture? Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members, for those questions. We can now have some responses.
Thank you. I'll answer this on more of a legal character. Okay, first question, Senator Torres, he mention the functions of the minister. They are set out in clause 6 of the bill. But I noticed an omission. Sorry to sprinkle something. There are a couple of improvements we should make to the bill, minor ones, in the course of piloting this bill, which we will discuss among ourselves. One of these is that the minister must be given the power to give policy directives. Yes. But the directives must be structured in such a way under the bill that they are not abusive or going over do anything inconsistent with the bill. So that is an amendment I think we should make, an improvement to clause 6, if you like. The question of trustee. Now, a trustee is, as the name implies, is in a position of trust. And the only person really who is fit for that post politically and statutorily and legally and constitutionally is the minister. And the minister cannot divide that trust with anyone else. Who will second guess the minister apart from His Excellency in Cabinet? It's really the only person really who can act as a trustee. But in doing so, of course, he or she will be accountable to Parliament. Parliament can hold that minister to account for the discharge of that trust. So it's not such a good idea to divide that trust among several people who will disagree among themselves. Who is higher than the minister as the person responsible for this act? There's no one. So, but the minister, in discharging the trust, she will be held accountable by you. That is your role. Overlapping laws. Yes, we've tried the ministry has tried to address that through the bill, I want to call liaison committees. Liaison committees from all stakeholders, not just the private sector, but the public sector as well. Those responsible for forestry, water, etc., will be part of a liaison committee. Things will not be done unilaterally in a one-way street, no. There will be consultation, coordination, and bargaining between stakeholders all along the chain. I don't know if I'll be intruding on Mr. Jakata's responses, but I could quickly just... okay. There was an issue of climate change monitoring. The second question asked about climate change monitoring. Read the bill carefully. The compliance unit is there for that. It's a dedicated team for that, to iron out any inconsistencies in that respect. And they don't leave stakeholders out of the loop when doing that. No, the stakeholders must be in the loop, watching them, consulting with them, to make sure that the monitoring is done properly. And in time, regulations can fine-tune that monitoring process and iron out any inconsistencies. The third question I asked about carbon trading, which I will completely defer to Mr. Yakata for. I'm not fully, I understand the broad outline of what carbon trading is about, but Mr. Yakata can supply the details that you want. Right. In fourth question asked about citizens' rights. They are embodied in this bill and the principles of this bill. But outside this bill also you have what are called class actions. We have a Class Actions Act that environmental rights enforcers can get citizens together in a class action to see, well, this mining activity is affecting our water table, what can we do? Already those class actions have resulted in success for them. They've halted environmentally damaging operations, whether from miners or anybody else, affecting their communities. We've had success through our legal aid unit bringing those actions forward. As to the ozone layer, I'm maybe very that.
Thank you, Mr. Dias. I'm sure Mr. Jakata will get the responses.
Okay, thank you very much, the Director of Ceremonies and the Author Mr. Dias for the clarifications. So I will just touch on those which Mr. Dias will address and the issues. So just to add on the monitoring and evaluation or monitoring activities, including evaluation, in place already also, because the climate change management department is there, but it shall expand in the scope of its business because of the demands due to the escalating problems with respect to climate change and what we're experiencing now. Noting that we need really to have some units dedicated to specific actions that the government has to be carrying out, for example, the loss and damage section. We have also some tools that have already been developed for monitoring and evaluation. Like, for example, together with the Ministry of Finance, with what is called the policies, really assist us in tracking climate finance for adaptation, mitigation, and other actions within the climate change portfolio. And also, we are just concluding right now development of a climate change adaptation monitoring and evaluation framework tool that will be rolled out, which will already piloted in some districts, and we're going to be rolling it out, which will assist in ensuring that we collect all the necessary information that will assist us to even access resources both domestically or otherwise internationally. So this tool, with the assistance of the United Nations for monitoring and evaluation tool, among other tools that are already in place. On issues during carbon trading, carbon trading has been operational in the country for years, which the government may not even say from when, but since it was initially under the Kyoto Protocol. And the Kyoto Protocol was agreed about 1997, but went into force in 2004. From then on, after 2004, there were so many companies, private companies, which were just doing carbon trading business in the country. But there was no regulation in any way which would govern the trade itself. So even I always give the example of Nationalist, where a company was just coming to donate fruit trees. You ask how many hectares would you provide for generous donation of fruit trees, and you feel 1 hectare, 2 hectares would give the trees enough for that, and also a monthly small allowance for you to manage to water those trees. People were quite accepted with open hands because surely these are fruit trees for nothing, and hence my capacity to produce food. And then, but those companies would go outside, take the quantities of all these electricities which they have managed to mobilize, and quantify how much they would absorb within the carbon dioxide and sell the carbon dioxide. No one knew. There were projects in Zarabati, Pire, and Gombe, which were ongoing, which no one knew how much. And there are so many stoves. Some of us here may have received some social stoves, green cookie stoves in our villages at home, and we didn't know what they were there for. It was like a donation to try to see whether we can reduce deforestation. But otherwise, all those government trade projects that have been ongoing. So now the government, after realizing, after our financial intelligence unit intercepted some very big payments which were made to some foreign companies because of carbon trading here, His Excellency the President terminated, stopped the carbon trading until we come up with the requisite legislation to govern carbon trading. This is what now we did not have the bill, but we just had to come up with a special instrument which was just in line putting its head to the Environmental Management Act, but without finding space there, it wasn't totally clear that it would sit comfortably and also legally there in that act. So that's why the climate change management bill would act to assist on this. So already after the regularization, we have the special project of 2025, which is now operational. His Excellency launched the carbon trading registry in May 23, 2025, and this registry now is attracted a lot of developers, and it's transparent, it's open, and it has already stopped any illegal activities in this trend, and every project has to register, has to come through this registry itself. So already trading has begun, and with the establishment of this bill, and the establishment of, the enactment of this bill, and the establishment of the funds coming into, will start flowing into the National Climate Change Fund immediately after the enactment of this fund. Because right now the funds will be heavy, some because already the government is quite a number of carbon credits which are ready for trading. And once they are traded, the funds go into the fund as well. But you couldn't establish a fund without the act itself. So this is on the carbon trading. Then the ambitious structure of the climate change management department, the ministry. We may say it's ambitious, but in order for us to effectively implement the climate change agenda, we need those units. And the Public Service Commission, also in their job, independent job evaluation exercise, they identify some of these limitations that the ministry cannot fully conduct business along that carbon trading if we remain lean without the establishment of some of these units. And they've already really established some of the units, except maybe for one or two, but otherwise already the department is most of the units that I've indicated, except for one or two, but otherwise with those which are in existence, we are understaffed, under-capacitated, and we are not deployed. So there was a cry from every authorities, even from our portfolio committee on the environment, the wildlife, as well as the thematic committee of climate change, also that if a small team is just in the head office, so many other areas will not benefit, because with limited resources from Treasury, at times outreach is impacted negatively. So with the devolution of the activities of this department, that will assist in enhancing climate mitigation across the country. The effects of the ozone layer, the question was more on what the ministry is doing, but in collaboration with agriculture in terms of addressing the issues of water. We have a national climate change adaptation plan that is already identified several specific areas of immediate intervention by the country. These are inclusive of the water issues. It addresses also the issues of water. Currently, we have managed to attract some funding from the Adaptation Fund, which is assessing the groundwater capacity. And then within the framework of the adaptation, climate change adaptation plan, it identifies how the government will address the water issues. And already the Zimbabwe National Water Authority is identified also the potential for the dams, potential for winds across the country, and what is remaining is for us collectively to act together with the Agriculture Ministry, the Water Authority, Climate Change Management, to identify the areas of potential or what's in the country, which the government will prioritize as we move towards also 2030, towards the CO to become a very state. We need to have water as one of the issues that is covered in the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan, which the Minister of Finance is already adopted and is using to ensure that all ministries, departments, and agencies they will come, the mainstream climate change within their budgeting plan. So these are some of the issues, because on there we have got a unity, the also the which is guiding the first arm of some of these gases, which we used to use in the cans that we used to use before for perfumes. Those cans, fluorocarbons, which used to be emitted, and then those will be phased out again. Actually, because the warmth that you see more than 2,000 times more than white carbon dioxide gas. Once you emit it in the atmosphere, it warms the atmosphere 2,000 times more. And then so many gases used in fire control, refrigeration, air conditioning, among others. We are already having a unit that's guided as a project. It's a project whereby a project officer is sent to go today, then we are in 4 shots. So we want to ensure that unit is still there, and it will assist in also raising awareness in the hospitals. Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those responses. In the interest of time, we've come to the end of our program. We can give them a round of applause as they take. At this point in time, allow me to invite the chairperson, Honorable Simon, to give us some closing remarks. I will give you 5 minutes now, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we come to the close of this very informative conversation, we, as the Portfolio Committee on Environment, Climate and Wildlife, jointly with the Thematic Committee on Climate Change, I want to express my gratitude to the 4 panelists for their submissions, their presentations, which were very informative, very comprehensive, laying a solid foundation for us as we try to come up with legislation that will put all of us on a profitable footing. You did justice. And the baseline that you established in terms of responding to the 5 critical questions legislatively with respect to environmental matters, climate change issues, where are we as a country? Where do we want to go as a country? How do we get to where we want to go? Which ways available are best? And how do we ensure in that space safe arrival? Very critical, and I would want to believe that you did justice to those 5 critical and strategic questions. And it's rare to find convergence with civil society, government, and business. But we are excited as a committee that there was and there is convergence in that respect. So this is an exciting and inviting space that we are in as we continue to interrogate and ventilate the bill that we have. Once again, let me thank you so very much. Honorable members who managed to come through, I want to thank you so very much for coming through. And let me also take this opportunity to advise that the Honorable Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife is in the House this afternoon for the second reading of the bill that we were seized with since morning. Thank you so very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you.